Howdy, folks. Welcome back or welcome aboard. I'm sorry we're running a little bit late, but where I come from is still 6 o'clock. So actually we're quite a few minutes early.
There you go.
I am not a fan of daylight savings time. I still have not adjusted to that concept, But I am happy to say that I'm back on my feet.
Yay!
This is the first show I've been able to do in a couple of months where I didn't have to sit down. So my energy is alive and well. I feel like I'm,
Trust me, folks.
we are ready to rock and roll.
Yes.
As you can tell, we have a full house in the Hilltop Studios. The Doc Owen Show. I am joined by...
I'm Mr. Fire.
And
Uncle Bachi.
And Uncle Dabachi. And this is Richard Doc Owen. So we will round it out. We are all over the social media for the time being. If we have time tonight, I'll get into a brief story about that. But we are out there as Doc Owen Show, DOCOWENSHOW, Facebook, Twitter. Twitter is still a real good way to follow us. We're on Instagram, etc. But we're going to start putting more and more emphasis on finding us and listening to the show through our website, our blog called DocOwenShow.com, spelled the same way. And if you would like to go out there tonight, you will see it under construction. It won't say under construction, but it'll be a whole new look and feel. And you can see some of the things that we've got the store up there, or at least the tag for the store. We've got the tag for other things, and so it's taking on a whole new, extremely robust life. And we're real excited with it. Ms. Surefire has been working with a technician to put together the store and to learn how to do it so we can do it going forward and, run our affiliate marketing campaign and yada, yada, yada. All this good,
good stuff.
Social media technology stuff.
Things happening this year.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
it's going to be a big year.
Yes.
We also have the free app that is downloadable to your iPhone or Android device. And you can find that if you go to your respective store and simply do a search for Doc Owen Show, DOCOWENSHOW. And you can download that, listen to our show live or as a podcast and spread it around amongst your friends, et cetera, et cetera. What else? What am I forgetting to tell them? I guess that's it. The three principles of the store, remember there's going to be three with a subcategory. Yes. So there's 3.5 different areas, different rooms in the store that you can shop in. And the concepts are being prepared, which I learned as a Boy Scout. You learn that in Scouts early on. Be prepared, be practical, and be a patriot. Those will be the three areas that we're going to focus on to go out and find vendors and merchandise, products, and services that support those three concepts. And within the Be Prepared is going to be a little niche over there in the corner that smells really good. And it's all decked out in pink.
And flowers.
It has candles going 24/7 and fresh flowers and incense burning and various and sundry soaps and oils. So when you dive in the lake while you're out in the wilderness, you can take a nice piece of soap with you and wash off.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did that paint a good picture?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Pampered.
Oh, it's called Pampered. I never said the word. All right.
Yeah.
So we got a lot to cover tonight. We have a very special guest. If you are a Doc Owen Show insider, you received the email. Our friend, Mr. Nico Lahood, is making his first appearance of what will be a monthly sort of series that we're going to go through and have a chat with Nico and either talk about current events or mostly talk about the bigger, broader picture of good and evil and Christians versus the rest of the world. is kind of how it feels sometimes. But Nico, we're going to have about 25 minutes with Nico tonight, so we got to make the rest of it rock and roll pretty fast. We always begin the show in a very traditional manner. We set our pace. Ms. Surefire gives us an inspirational quote. Uncle Bocce gives us an event this day in history, and then I rounded out what has been lately a biblical quote. So, Ms. Surefire, take it away.
And tonight's quote comes from a site that I quote from pretty often called brainyquote.com. BRAINY quote.com.
Oh, one word.
Yes. And tonight's quote comes from somebody that most of us have heard at one time or another. She is still with us. And her name is Carol Burnett.
Oh, we're going to go see Carol Burnett.
Yep.
Carol Burnett.
We're going to see her.
She's a native of San Antonio, and she's coming home. She'll be at a place called the Tobin Center downtown Tuesday night.
She?
And we're going to go see her. Yep.
Wow.
Tuesday, yep.
All right.
Yeah, she's one of the greats.
So what's she have to say?
Her quote is, "It's almost impossible to be funnier than the people in Washington."
And she probably said that 40 years ago.
Probably so. It hasn't changed.
I like that. That's good.
Good quote.
I watch all her shows. Don't remember that.
Yeah. She's funny.
So what do you got, Uncle Bocce? What happened? Thanks. Good job. Right on point.
Yes, exactly. On this day in 1776, a friend of the country and a founding father, Alexander Hamilton, he was named as a captain of the New York Artillery.
Oh,
yeah. Which started his military career. And he ended up with George Washington and all that. So, yeah. So he had a military career before he was shot.
That happens to a lot of people in the military.
It
That's
does.
a good point.
It's the nature of the business.
Yeah, but he wasn't shot in the military, unfortunately.
I know. Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
So on March the 11th, 1776, Alexander Hamilton became a captain. Is that what you said?
He received the.
Cool. My quote tonight is like Emma's. It's from a book that you've probably heard of called the Bible. But I'm getting it out of this little book a friend of the show gave us called God Bless America to kind of keep us in tune. This one is Psalm 67:4. May the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you rule the peoples justly and guide the nations of the earth.
That's a good one.
Amen. Yes, it is. Not only is it a good one, but it fits right in with our founding.
Exactly. And we were talking over dinner about the fight between good and evil, which we will get into after we hear from Nico, I hope, if we have some time. So, Uncle Bocce?
Yes. Tonight, we're going to quickly...
Who are we going to talk? It's my understanding...
Yes.
That we were doing all this as a historical perspective of the pushback on Donald J. Trump.
Right.
I think we've pretty well proven the point that this is absolutely over the top, unbelievable, and unquestionably foolish. I mean, it's a waste of everybody's time and money.
Right. It's always been there, but particularly starting with JFK, pushback became the rule.
Well, and the reason that's the other reason I bring that up, because it's always been a historical perspective. And if you're not familiar with the very, 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 very beginnings of the Doc Owen Show, I did a series called Life in the It started with Life in the 60s, or History as Life was the name of the series, because I have this opinion that once you're talking about things that I remember, it's not history. I mean, if I'm alive, it's my life. It's not history. I have trouble
anymore.
talking about JFK as if it were history.
Yeah.
But I realize that our audience, it is history.
That's right.
We kind of pegged ourselves on 9/11, like I pegged myself on JFK's assassination. So we have to think about things like that and figure out. I mean, as far as the audience is concerned, JFK is history to them.
True.
Right?
True.
So.
Yeah.
So I can take a break because I know I was there.
Oh, yeah, well, so was I, but...
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, so yeah, he's the 35th president of the United States, and he was selected by the Democrats.
A lot of people don't even know what JFK stands for.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'll do it right now. JFK stands for John Fitzgerald Kennedy.
There you go.
And he was of the famous Kennedy family, but his mother's maiden name was Fitzgerald, which was also a socialite kind of thing.
Well,
that's who they were.
That's how it worked. Right.
Yeah. So, so the election in 1960, they chose Kennedy to run against Richard Nixon, who was Eisenhower's vice president. Right off the bat, the biggest problem for Nixon was that he agreed to go on TV to do a debate. And unfortunately for Nixon, he came off looking very stiff, and
he went up
he had
against
a 5 o'clock shadow. It was not very. On the other hand, John F. Kennedy just was like all brand new.
Oh, Kennedy was Mr. Charisma.
Absolutely, Mr. Charisma, and very inspiring.
Right.
And he won, although popular vote, he only won by a little over 118,000.
He'd have done better if he hadn't been a Catholic.
Yes, that's the other big issue.
A major
believe it or
concern.
Not. Back then, I lived
yep.
through it. Right.
Yep.
It was. Well, anyway.
I was 16 or 60. I was 15 at the time when he got elected. Mm-hmm. So I was in my campaign to go to the Naval Academy.
Yep. So
he signed my waiver to get me in because I was too short.
Yeah,
he did.
So he's 35th president, and he was the first Catholic elected to the office. There were many key events in American history were going on at that time.
Yes.
One of the great things was Alan Shepard's voyage into space.
Yes.
We remember that. Mm-hmm. The Cuban Missile Crisis. Mm-hmm. But he was most remembered for his glamorous lifestyle or his family life.
Yeah.
It was very glamorous. And he married,
a
debutante. He married, Jacqueline Kennedy. And
they were one of the fears in the country was that we were moving back to what we had fought the Revolutionary War about, of having a king and queen. The royalty aspect of how they appeared and acted and were treated.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was a big deal.
Absolutely, yeah. But he was an incredibly inspiring speech giver. He really was, very much. People very much felt good when they listened to John F. Kennedy.
Well, and they felt challenged.
That's right.
He really brought out the best Americanism in folks.
Yes, he did. He was very, very well liked on both sides.
Exactly, regardless of political party.
So some of the things that happened, he, just like Eisenhower, he increased the minimum wage by another 25 cents, so now it's $1.25. I
remember getting that raise.
Yeah, and he expanded, as did Eisenhower. He expanded the Social Security benefits, and at a later time I can tell you what those were. I do have a link here to get to it. He had an urban renewal package that was passed. He created the Peace Corps. Is that still running?
I think so. I think it's still out there, but it was a big deal.
Yeah, back then it was a huge deal.
Well, you know why?
Because of the war. No, the war hadn't started yet.
Well, but tell the audience what your reference is to the war. If you volunteered for the Peace Corps, you didn't get drafted to go to Vietnam.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you would go out there and do good humanitarian work, then you didn't go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. And he also set the goal to reach the moon at the end of the 60s. So he was very inspiring, very forward-looking, very, encouraging. On the civil rights front.
And his most famous phrase was? The one
ask that one?
Yep.
Yeah. I was going to come to that later, but ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. And boy,
words to live by.
After he got shot, those words died completely.
Well, that's maybe one of the reasons he got shot. Keep going.
Yeah, right. We can get into that, but okay. Anyway, so initially he did not challenge the Southern Democrats, and you know what the South was like back then. It was controlled by the Democrats, and there was a lot of, racial kind of things going on, segregation and all that kind of stuff.
None of which he agreed with or approved of.
Right. And so he wasn't very active on the civil rights front, but he did use executive orders and personal appeals to aid the movement of Martin Luther King.
Sure.
So he was very supportive of that.
Yep.
And his legislative programs, however, they just would not pass until after his death. He just couldn't get them through the Congress. In foreign affairs, remember the Bay of Pigs?
Yep.
Cuba. Okay. They had a whole thing of invading Cuba with some rebels in Cuba, and somehow or other it fell apart, and it was really bad news for America, because right after that, Khrushchev started putting missiles in Cuba. Right. Khrushchev being the Soviet Union, the leader of the Soviet Union. Right. So Kennedy ordered a quarantine in response, which lasted almost forever. And he warned that any attack from Cuba would be seen as a war, act of war by the USSR. So he
the
really,
USSR at the time being Russia,
being what
those
is now known as
terms.
Russia. Yeah. Okay. He started the Alliance for Progress, where the U.S. was providing aid to Latin America. North Vietnam was looming on the horizon, and he increased the number of troops in Vietnam, even though he went through Laos, or whatever that country is called. So, and Vietnam was fastly approaching a boiling point. So he sent about 16,000 troops, more than what we had there then. As far as history is concerned, he was important more for his iconic reputation than his legislative actions. Mm-hmm. And his many inspiring speeches, as we talked, he is often quoted. One of the most quoted presidents ever. His youthful vigor and his fashionable first lady.
Right.
They were hailed as American royalty, like you said. And there was the whole idea of Camelot and all that kind of thing. But the thing is that the country was feeling good.
Yeah.
Okay. Then his assassination, which has taken on a mythic quality. Nobody really knows the truth. Nobody really knows what happened.
Nah, I don't know about it.
Yeah, and there are conspiracies involving Lyndon Johnson all the way up to the mafia. So who knows what it was. I have a personal opinion, which I won't share. His moral leadership of the civil rights was an important part of the movement's eventual success. And that's about it.
Good.
This is John Kennedy, and he was a good man.
Yep.
But was taken from us before he could accomplish much.
Well, yeah. We there are shows and books and movies and tons. All kinds of stuff. And there are, as we are fond of saying, or I've always been fond of saying, there are two sides to every coin. That's all there is to it. So when it comes to the death of a John F. Kennedy, there are two sides to every coin. And you can, believe whichever side that you care to. I, for one, let's dive. We want to get into Nico, and we're going to run out of time. So, because if I get started, I'll be off and winging it, and we've promised the audience to listen to Nico. So, without much further ado, those of you that listen to the show know that Nico Lahood is a good friend of the Doc Owen Show. Mm-hmm. And since he left office as our district attorney, we gave it some time for things to kind of mellow out and him to get his new office open. And, now he's a civilian lawyer. And we got a chance to visit with him last Friday. And so I want you to hear the entire conversation. I don't want to split it in two because I think it's important if we just run through with it. So,
okay.
Here you go.
Let's do it.
Tell me when. Folks, I am sitting across the desk from a younger, more agile, fired up former district attorney in Bexar County, a friend of the Doc Owen Show, and a friend of ours personally, Mr. Nico Lahood. Mr. Lahood, you look good, man.
Thanks, Doc. So do you.
I got a question for you.
Anything.
This is very important.
Okay.
Whose wife is important is very excited to have that bear out of their den.
Let me tell you, there's a long story on that bear.
But there is.
But
he goes in his new office, and they've got a small bear.
A small, full-size bear.
Right.
A small, full-size bear.
That greets you through the glass.
Well, we joke. One of the lawyers in here, Jason Goss, the people that had this office space before us it was an oil and gas.
And they just swept it by?
Well, no. So, oil people, they had bears. And there was a bunch of other
I think
decor.
they go out and buy them. They don't.
I'm sure. I never asked.
Right.
Well, Jason liked the bear, and I said, well, sure, Jason, man, I can talk to him about working out a deal. You can get it, and I'm sure it'll work out. They don't want to move it anywhere. They'll probably give you a good price. So they negotiated a price. They haggled a little bit, and they came to an agreement.
Sure.
And I said, how are you going to get it out of here? He's like, get it out of here. I'm buying it for the firm.
For the office.
And I said, who asked for it? Nobody asked for it. And he goes, I have no place to put that big thing. And I said, oh, man. So we took a vote. Everyone liked it more than did like it.
Yeah,
so I said, we'll keep it. So now we jokingly say, well, we defend people in Bexar County. So
there you go.
That wasn't the plan, but we have
to.
So people like it. They think it's funny.
And we're spelled Bexar.
Right.
So for those of you outside of Texas, it's often pronounced Bexar.
Yes, that's right. It's really supposed to be Bexar if you do it properly. Many years.
See what I have to deal with, folks. So to give the audience a little bit of background,
okay.
When shortly was it right before you left the DA's office or as you were leaving that this came up, this complaint that was filed against you relative to
with the state bar?
Your demeanor, yeah.
Yeah, it came up.
Was it part of the political scene during the re-election?
It was absolutely part of the political scene in the re-election. Now the claim was made a while ago. It was after that murder trial that I was involved in, where all these allegations arose out of by Gonzalez. Right. And so it had been pending this whole time, but it finally came to a hearing recently.
Okay. Nico was accused of, and it was politically motivated, and for anybody that doesn't think it was politically motivated, just go somewhere and do something else right now.
Well, I mean, yeah,
but
the allegation.
You don't need to listen to this because it was real obvious as it was going down and the timing, et cetera, et cetera. And it's one of those things where, guilty or not, the damage is done when the accusation is made.
Well, and
because there'll be a number of people that'll believe, they'll just listen to it and say, I told you.
Let me tell you what I've been dealing with, Doc. First of all, the allegation was that I threatened to shut down a law practice in the middle of a murder trial because there was a disagreement on evidence. And that the allegation was in front of 6 people, one of them being a district court judge. I allegedly threatened to shut down a practice and would make sure they never got a client again, which anybody with half a brain would know that there's no way that could happen by any DA.
No.
And so I denied that from day one. I was consistent about denying it. But what I couldn't do, at least I felt, was continually defend myself as time went on because that murder case was still pending. There was an appellate process.
You could only say so much.
I felt like I wanted to wait because I wanted the murder case. I know what it's like to lose a family member to violent crime. I knew that family wanted their day in court, and I didn't want to make it about me, even though they were making it about me and not about the victim or the case. Which I got it. If you're a smart person, you can figure it out.
Sure.
But that was it. And so I just kept my mouth shut. So when you keep your mouth shut overall and not get into the details, then if somebody keeps repeating something that's not true, then it becomes believable, right? And so I think they got more press on it because I made a decision to think about the case.
To not respond.
Right, to think
Right.
about the case overall. I
Well,
mean, I made blanket statements that it's a lie and that I didn't say it, but I didn't get into any details.
You made a decision to do the right thing.
I feel like I did.
Which that's one of the reasons that we have fun together.
Right.
You made a decision to do the right thing,
Right.
which is a hard road to travel sometimes.
Well, people, they make the convenient decisions often. And what
Of
I
course.
try to teach our kids, my wife and I, our kids, is to stand for godly principles. Don't waver from them. Understand why you're standing for them. That's not just because I said so. It's because there's a logical reason behind it.
Yes.
And then don't be afraid of a fight. You have to stand up and defend what's right, what's truthful, and principles that we live by. I mean, if I make decisions on doing things because I can be dissuaded because it's going to be uncomfortable, or it's not going to be easy, or I'm going to be called a name, or I'm going to be this, or people are going to think that of me, well, then we buy into the narrative today, which is I can name call you into silence. That's what's happening today in society.
Oh yeah, I could beat you down.
I can name call you into silence. Silence. If I call you enough names, and if I do it louder than you,
Yes.
then I'm going to win. That's not how our justice system works. That's not good for our society, and it's not good for the moral compass of any aspect of this country or this state or city. So I just try to model what I teach our kids, and it's not easy, and no one said it's going to be, but I'm comfortable doing what I do.
You hit on something that has always been one of my favorite phrases, and that is I absolutely love a good fight, particularly when I'm right.
Well, you're talking about...
In other words, not backing away from it.
Right. Well, you're talking about a righteous position, right?
Yes, sir.
So a righteous fight. And so use the word fight, and people
I'm not
think
talking about
that
legal position. I'm talking about a morally, ethically,
Right.
righteous, correct position, and let's wait in.
Well,
and that's where you came from in this whole thing.
Well, that was our position.
And then for the audience, it got worse. I mean, it wasn't just the accusation. It was now it's even after the fact
well,
of being exonerated. And before we got on the air, before we started recording, Nico was going through the numbers, literally, in terms of the accusations that were made. And they are outlandish. I mean, if you've listened to us on the air at all, you will not be. You won't be able to envision Mr. Lahood acting the way they said that he acted.
Look, it was a passionate discussion. I've never denied that. We're dealing with a murder case.
But you're still composed even when you're passionate.
Look, the bottom line is they said I made a threat that I didn't make, and that was it. It was without context. It was, in our opinion, exaggerated, dishonest, disingenuous, whatever the word you want to use to adjective to describe it.
Yes,
but
sir.
ultimately, it wasn't true. What people didn't realize is that I had witnesses also. I just didn't.
Oh, they never think about that.
Well, no, I mean, and so to give people context who doesn't understand, this last Monday, there was a hearing in front of the commission.
Right.
That gives their recommendation to the state bar.
A commission of attorneys and citizens.
There's 5 panels.
I mean, it's not to say that lawyers aren't citizens.
No, I know what you mean. Lay people and
sometimes
lawyers.
Sometimes we wish they were.
Right. There was 3 lawyers and two civilians, and
Okay.
they heard all the evidence. They heard from Joe Gonzalez himself and his 3 other witnesses, including Stevens, the attorney that is making all these accusations with him. They heard from me and then my 2 witnesses. And essentially, I'm trying to keep it in simple terms. Essentially, they found it not true. That we said, we don't believe your version, or you didn't prove your version, however way you want to coax it. Right. But they found it not true. That's true. A big deal.
That is a big deal.
What they did find was sufficient or true was that I misspoke or I said things to the media that I shouldn't have said. One of the things they were alleging is while the trial was pending, after all this commotion and it got reset, there was a mistrial. It was set again for trial. And that a media person in the news came up to me and said, what do you say to these allegations? Because they filed a court document that was public record. And I said, those are lies, and I will not let them. And this is the allegation they said. I'm assuming this is the one that they found true.
Right.
That I'm not going to let them distract from the fact that their client's guilty. That's literally that. And they said, well, then you shouldn't have said that, and you shouldn't have tried to embarrass a third person, which is the defendant, the citizen that is being accused. I mean, whether I agree or disagree with that or not, that's their finding. And what they did not find true was the allegations that Joe said that I threatened him, or any of these other things, or any of the witnesses said. That's a big deal. that the headline should have been former DA exonerated of allegations of a threat.
Yes.
Because that was, but instead you have a very dishonest newspaper.
Yes.
That actually reported that I had been suspended, which I was not.
And it shouldn't take the audience long to figure out which newspaper, because we only have one.
Well, there's one paper.
But we'll stay real clean.
Well, I mean, look, it's disingenuous.
There's one paper and there's one reporter that's been ragging you from the day you got elected.
Yeah, that's right. And because I won't fold,
right.
and because I won't go away, and because I won't shut up, and they can't name call me into silence, he's going to continue to do this. So I don't know if somebody stole his bike that looked like me when he was a kid, or he's just insecure of all of them. I have my opinions. That's on him. That's between him and God. It's just very it's dishonest, and it's disingenuous.
Right.
And when you have that type of, I mean, it was a conscious disregard for any journalistic integrity, and it was malicious what they did. It was absolutely malicious.
In the vernacular, it was a hit piece.
I think it's very obvious.
It's a hit piece.
It was very obvious.
But unfortunately, as we also talked about, that doesn't come across, and that's what pains me. And I know.
Well, it really caused me. I was leaving Bible study on Wednesday morning. So Tuesday morning, we get the email from the commission of their ruling, and I called my attorney, Wade. I said, Wade, I'm not a civil guy, so I want to make sure that
folks, when lawyers go to court, they get lawyers to represent.
A doctor gets a doctor when you need surgery too.
Yes,
just
sir.
FYI. You don't do your own surgeries.
No.
And so,
even if you can reach the part.
Yeah, that's right. You're usually out. And so I called him and I said, am I reading this correctly? Or does this essentially say that I have been absolved and they found not true the allegations of the threat or any criminal or unethical, meaning untrue, dishonest?
Right.
Statements, and he goes, "That's right." And so they're essentially saying I shouldn't have spoken to the press in the manner that I did. Essentially, yes. And I said, "Wow!" I was grateful. I felt finally exonerated.
Yes.
All of those things you feel.
Yes.
And then the next day, within 24 hours,
boom,
I leave Bible study and I start getting phone calls. Like, "Well, are you okay?" I said, "Okay for what?" "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm going.
Doing great.
I just finished Bible study. I feel energized. I'm going to go to work." And,
right.
And then went from there. And they had to. When you have to issue a correction in huge letters, but it's never done the same way as the initial.
Of course not.
The initial hit piece. Well, it's never going to get the same traction because people are already confused,
right?
And they believe, and it just goes to show that.
And you're not running for office, so it's a matter of they're not only are they confused, but they sort of lost interest,
right?
Or you're going to need to get it.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Or they don't. They don't want to be reminded that they might have made a mistake by believing or listening to it in the first place.
Right.
That's really what they don't want.
Well,
people don't like to be told you made a bad decision.
People close to me. Well, look, you've heard this, Doc, and maybe some of your listeners have heard this, and this really makes this come to life. This statement: believe in none of what you read and half of what you see.
Right.
That is if I haven't seen that, I've seen that as a prosecutor and a defense attorney and being involved in the justice system and politics, by the way, for all these years. But when it's towards you a number of times, I can't tell how many pieces I've read about me that were just completely false, or there was a little bit of truth with a lot of bit of lie.
Sure.
And so it gives a little bit of an essence, just a smidgen of truth, and then the rest of it is just completely false narrative. And so, but this one was really, because people close to me thought something had happened, and then you see the people that say, "Sorry, we're here for you," and I said, "For what?" And the other ones, "What happened? I don't believe what I read." You really get into people's mindsets, and it has really taught me even a further lesson that I thought I believed before, and I really believe it now. I believe nothing what I read. I just don't.
If it means anything to you, I quit reading newspapers in '68.
Well, someone has to. Well, someone
did.
What is it? Oh God, who said this? More than one person has said this before. I know Denzel Washington said it at some point. If you read the paper, if you don't read the paper, you're uninformed. If you read the paper, you're misinformed. Right?
Sounds like something he'd say. I'll give him credit.
He's bold. I don't know if he's the first person to say that, but I have to admit I agree with that. And then everyone's an opinion writer now, so that gives them this umbrella that I can say whatever I want and I'm cool, I'm covered.
Well, I'll extend it further for you. It's not just papers. It's news. It's media. Yeah. It's media, the generic thing called media. those of us on the independent media side, like Doc Owen Show, call it mainstream media. Well, and it's opinion. It's not. Walter Cronkite is. He ain't out there. We don't have one.
I always tell people in journalism, the way that
for those of you in the audience who don't know who that is, look it up.
Yeah, Walter Cronkite. I'll tell you this: journalism, the way I was taught it, was equivalent to a sportscaster. Just to tell you what they're watching.
Play by play.
Play by play. You make up your own decision. I'm not going to tell you if I disagree with the referee. I'm just telling you what the referee called. I'm going to tell you what I'm describing, but you're going to make up your own decision. That's a sportscaster. To me, that's what a journalist and what a news journalist is supposed to be like. Right. Not to sway you either way, to inform you, and then you make up your own mind. That's not what's going on. And I'll say this across the board. It's very. I don't know any mainstream that is extremely 100% like that.
Never heard that as an analogy. That's good.
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
That's brilliant. It does. It's very logical.
That's the way. I mean, think about the not that you were here on these days because you're young. You got some juice in you still, Doc. Remember in the days where there was no TVs and there was just radios. People just in their living room.
Now you're flattering me. Of course I do.
We're around.
You can't imagine the fight when the first one came in the room about where it was going to sit.
But think about these things. You sat around the radio and you listened and you closed your eyes.
Absolutely.
You closed your eyes and you imagined in your mind what you were hearing, and then you made up your own mind.
The better shows painted the picture for you.
Yeah.
When I first started doing the Doc Owen Show, I wanted to do things like Amos and Andy, and to tell the stories like they used to tell. I didn't get any traction to it.
I know.
But you're absolutely correct. They had to paint a picture.
I know.
Because there was no visual, and now it's all ruled by YouTube.
Yes.
A long movie is 15 minutes.
I love it. Can I just tell you how loyal my staff is? I just love them. They walk by, one of my assistants would walk by and goes, "Nico, do you know she's recording you?" How do you like them apples?
I love it.
I love it.
I love it.
I just want to call Marty.
Did you bring any with you from the DA's office?
Doc, the team here, I don't know if you've done your research on the lawyers in this firm. My law partner, Jay Norton, has his reputation speaks for itself. He was in private practice for 25 years. Before that, he was a prosecutor. He's been practicing for almost 35 years himself.
Wow.
He came to work with me in the DA's office about 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years. He was our division chief for the felony section.
Nice.
So he overlooked all the felony courts, from capital murders down to drug possessions and all kinds of sexual assault cases. Nice. Then Jason Goss was a court chief. He's board certified in criminal law. He's only been a prosecutor for close to 10 years. Then Patrick Valentine's board certified in criminal law. He worked in our conviction integrity unit. He worked in our appellate section. He does writs. He worked for a defense attorney before he became a lawyer. I mean, so these are top tier lawyers. They have their own. Their CVs speak for themselves. I'm honored that they
got together. So we need to give this kid a break.
Which kid?
You.
Well, I'm older than half of them, except for Jay. I mean, so I don't know about that. As a matter of fact, I was Jason's mock trial coach in law school.
Nice.
So we have years together.
So you got relationship.
Well, but they know the
culture.
We all work together in the DA's office.
Right.
They understand the culture that I wanted to set. They understand the integrity that this office and what we're doing. And then they're competent lawyers. I mean, I'm not just saying that. I mean, their resumes speak for themselves. And so I'm honored that they wanted to come work.
I'm really proud of you, man.
Thanks, Doc.
I've always been proud of you.
Let me tell you,
proud to know you and have the relationship just because of the way you and the audience, because of the way you carry yourself, not walking, which is we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But,
well, Doc, I tell you, a friend of mine asked me yesterday because people have been calling me. People have been calling me and saying, Nico, we're praying for you. These are just evil attacks, which is true. I mean, they're just evil. I mean, look, all you got to do is look at the front page and know that what they reported is not accurate. Just looking at this, anybody can figure that out. And especially if someone's supposed to be an investigative reporter, that's the guy that handled the first case. I mean, that just shows malice. That's my point. But aside from that, are you okay? And I said, look, when you stand for certain principles, and my principles are reflecting Christ's principles, you got a bullseye on your back. And I've been consistent about that. I don't put a show on. I don't care if I'm on radio, TV, one person, 1,000 people. you're going to get the same message and the same consistent behavior. And these 3 lawyers that work with me, after knowing me personally as a defense attorney, working with me in the DA's office, do you think they would have come to work with me if they thought that I was everything that these people are claiming I was?
Oh, of course not.
They wouldn't.
No.
This is their career too. I mean, they all have very honorable careers.
You'd be hanging out by yourself.
I'd be by myself
in an executive suite.
That's right. That's true.
Hoping somebody stopped by.
Yeah. And so it's just an honor, and I want to model what I'm teaching my kids to my kids. That's what
I know you need to go back to work, but I got one more question. How you do it? I mean, how do you keep from doing? How do you keep from? I'm going to use the exact phrase. How do you make sure you respond and don't react?
You know what I'm saying? I know exactly what your brother.
When this sort of stuff, I'm not nearly as good at it as you are, and I should be better because I'm older.
I will tell you this, because I went through years of reacting. And we've talked about this.
Yes, sir.
When my brother was murdered, I was a functioning angerholic. Right, the world told me I don't blame you. Man, you're a victim. I get it. Whatever you do is justified because what you went through. You are your experience versus you are who God says you are. And as I started walking in my faith, meaning understanding my faith, training in my faith, understanding that there was this guy named Jesus Christ that walked the earth. And that although he is a historical figure, to me, he's the Son of God, and he is who he says he was. He's a deity. And he rose from I believe it. We're approaching, people want to say Easter, I call it Resurrection Day.
Yes, sir.
When you truly are persuaded by a kingdom-minded perspective that the Word of God in Psalm 37, 46, over and over again, nobody gets away with it. Isaiah 41, nobody gets away with it. Every one of us have to answer. I don't care if you believe in talking walls, talking pigs, or whatever you believe in, whatever your worldview is, or you're an atheist and you think you're going to turn into worm food, that's fine. I promise you we're all going to stand before the person and the deity that created all the cosmos and all the trillions of cells in your body, my body, her body.
Yeah.
We're going to do that. And when I have that mindset, knowing that I'm persuaded by that no matter what I go through, and know how much injustice it seems like at the time, that everyone has to answer for that gives me some peace. Because in the natural, you're always going to come up short. Somebody is. It's just, or you're going to kill yourself with anger and stress. And I went through that for years after my brother was murdered.
Right.
Nothing was going to bring him back. What do you do? I mean, what do you do?
That's one of those that
you're called to forgive.
I knew the answer to, but I wanted the audience
to
hear you.
It gets even deeper. I gave you the Cliff Note version. Trust me, it's a lot deeper. I'm going to talk on that a lot.
We're going to talk on that. I've already told the audience that we're going to do this on a pretty regular basis. But however, the longer he's in private practice, the harder it's going to be to get to see him.
No, brother, we just
he's
set it
get
up.
Busy.
No. God, from your mouth to God's ears. But you come, we set it up, and I'm happy to talk. We just talk things out.
It does.
I spoke to a kid the other day at St. Mary's Hall, and I love going to speak at their Issues Day. And what my passion is that not even young people anymore, even older people, nobody critically thinks anymore. They just don't. It's a soundbite, rhetoric-filled society with if I can call you enough names, if I can post it enough times, if I can repeat it more than you, then it must be true. That's not the way things should work. It doesn't work in the justice system that way. And if it did, it should scare the hell out of you. It should scare the hell out of you.
They're not trained that way. But unfortunately, they don't have teachers like you and I did that said why. They'd say why back. Mm-hmm. When you ask them a question, or don't say why do you ask me that. They don't use the Socratic method of drawing these young people into a logical thinking conversation. They just boom, here it is.
Another talk. Socrates,
right?
You know what? I'm sorry. You're exactly right. It could make you think and give a response, and it's a dialogue back and forth. But you know why we know what Socrates says, or why we think we know what Socrates says?
No.
Because Plato says it. We have nothing from Socrates. That's a fact. No one questions that. People question, even though we have over 25,000 copies of the New Testament in different areas, from Greek to Latin, all kinds of areas of this world.
Right.
It is the most well-attested antiquities writing, ancient writing. In
Plato's writing.
No, the Bible.
The Bible.
The New Testament.
Okay.
I'm saying Plato, we have less than 100 or whatever it is. We have nothing from Socrates. Plato tells us what he says, but yet every law school in the United States teaches under the Socratic method. I digress.
Okay, let me tell you something funny, and then we'll bail out. I was interviewing for a position as a professor, And
they were considering you?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah. Even worse, they hired me.
Oh.
So,
but
when I was sitting there being interviewed by the dean of the school, and most of the audience knows that I'm an Aggie, and I like playing that card every once in a while when it works.
Yeah.
And so the guy said, "Well, how do you feel about teaching in the Socratic method?" I said, "Well, I'm not crazy about that. I just sort of like to ask my students questions and have a conversation."
There you go. By the way, just for the audience, that's the Socratic method.
You know, I don't want to use a bunch of big
but
words.
it's important, brother. I mean, that's important. Look, I tell you, you see these younger people and some older people, they don't understand the importance of a handshake. They don't understand the importance of posture. They don't understand the importance of eye contact. They don't understand the importance of voice tone. They don't have the understanding of the power of articulation. They just don't. I mean, just demeanor, sitting, posture, handshakes. You're telling a message. You're giving a message.
Your persona.
Absolutely, but it's got to be sincere. I mean,
oh, sure.
Mm-hmm. I can't. I mean, if I didn't stand up for a young lady or an older lady that came to the table, my pop would get on my ass. I mean, if I didn't open the door for her, if I walked in the door before her, I mean, I've been married almost 13 years to my wife, who's way too good for me. I still open the door for her. I still thank her if she makes meal. Well, she always cooks for the whole family every night, and it's a relationship of gratitude and of honoring her. I revere her. I honor her. I elevate her because that's what the Bible tells me to do in Proverbs 31:10. I mean, she's a godly woman and she's a great mommy, and she deals with things. We have 4 kids, and one of them is special needs.
Yes, sir.
And we have a very dynamic house. With the challenges of raising, and the loving challenges of raising a special needs child, and then her being stuck with this crazy guy that is fighting for principles in the political arena that she was nothing about. And she was like, political what? I mean, she's such a genuine person. She knew nothing about politics, and she's never complained once, Doc. Not one time has she ever complained. She would have been fine if I continued to serve, even though she prefers this. Yes. She understood why. She knew the why. Yeah. And it matters to our kids. And
it was a calling. It was very apparent as you were doing it.
Well, I mean, my job is to be obedient to those callings. And when we do things that are comfortable, I think we're going to fall short. I mean, spiritually, we're going to fall short because we all make comfortable decisions. I want to make right decisions. Yeah. So it's a different analysis.
That was something that JFK Jr. said one time, that he could be a great man. And he said, actually, I'd rather be a good man.
A good man over a great man?
Yeah.
Interesting. Why did he say that? I'm trying to work that out.
Because of just exactly what you were saying. There was a goodness in him, a holiness in him. In other words, he didn't want to be great. He didn't want to be a superstar. He just wanted to be a good man, just doing what he was supposed to be doing.
Interesting.
All his life.
We got to look at what the definition of good is. That's another discussion topic we got to talk about.
Oh, we got work to do. You always give me homework.
I'm just saying. Dude. Well, good is the enemy of great. Right?
Yep.
Good enough.
It can be.
I got enough of this. I got enough of that. I've done this enough. I've done that enough. Okay, well, so good is the enemy of great. I want to strive for greatness, but not my definition of greatness. For me, God's definition of greatness.
There is a difference, yeah. And I think that's what he was hinting at. Yeah. God would come down and say, "You're a good man." One of the most flattering things I can tell that I feel like I can say to somebody is, "You're a good man."
Let me tell you something. When someone gives that compliment
from my wife.
Let me tell you something. But to your point, people don't understand this in today's, I think, societal square. But I can't believe I'm saying in the old days, in the days of my pop, and even in my day. When you gave the compliment, hey, Doc Owens, he's a good man. When I say someone's a good man, that is a label of honor. That means that they have integrity, that they're honest, and that I trust them. That's what I get from that. So when I'm saying he's a good man, integrity, honesty, and I can trust him. And that's a big statement back in the day, so to speak, quote unquote. I hate air quotes, but you know what I mean. And now I don't know what it means today because good has been hijacked.
So, as has everything else. Mm-hmm. Let's call it a day.
Whatever you
need to go to work.
I need to go to the bathroom. I got to take.
Oh yeah,
that's
I'm
just telling you, but
you
don't care
about that.
He doesn't care. Yeah, he's very selfish.
Love you, man.
God bless
we'll
you.
See you soon. God bless you.
So
It doesn't get a whole lot more real than that.
It certainly doesn't.
We had the ability to edit and clip, and we did take out a little phone call that he took. But I felt like the rest of it was worth hearing just to show the reality of the conversation. And we will have another one very, very soon. So one of the things that caused, that brought to the surface just the other night at the dinner table, after we'd had the conversation with Nico and various and sundry other things, Ms. Surefire, on the other hand, also known as Ms. Owen, asked me at what point I became so angry, just like Nico was talking. And it made me think, obviously. And I think the audience deserves to know that I've always been a bit of an outspoken individual ever since I was, so I'm told, about 7 months old. But I had my mind set on doing something called going to the Naval Academy, starting when I was 12 years old. And by the time I was just a little over 19, and I was at the Naval Academy, they shot JFK, which Uncle Bocce referred to, in 1963, November of 63. And then in the summer of 64, they started the war in Vietnam. And so by the time I was 19, the evil powers in the world had completely wrecked my life. And I greatly resented it. Just like he was talking about the evil powers that murdered his brother. And so I've come to the conclusion, and I absolutely must focus on it, and this is not my idea, but I finally realized that the fight we're seeing going on in the world is good against evil. It's a spiritual fight.
Amen.
It's not, we're seeing it play out in men and women and politics and all sorts of what spiritual people call the natural world, right?
Yeah.
But it's a spiritual fight. This good versus evil is so much bigger than us. And quite frankly, the QAnon movement that you've heard me mentioning is also talking about the same thing. It's good versus evil. And it all depends on really which side you want to be on. And the side of Christ and the side of God and the side of that spiritual element within the world is the good side of all of us. It is in all of us. If we allow the evil side to take over, then we don't appear to be what we were meant to be. And
that's right.
And so, here and now, for those times that I've had evil in charge of my being, I apologize. Because growing up, I grew up in, as some of you know, I grew up in Mayberry RFD. I grew up in what was Andy Griffith, what you saw on television was like my hometown.
Yeah.
It was just unbelievably pure.
Yeah.
Unbelievably good and pure.
I was pretty
Mine
blessed, too.
Yeah.
I was blessed.
And that's how you refer to it, yes.
Yeah, I was truly blessed.
Right.
In many ways.
I think all three of us were. And I think a lot of the audience was too, but we've lost our way.
Yeah.
So as you go out there, remember good versus evil and try to focus on the good. Try to be the good. Look at the bigger picture.
Please.
Some folks say, refer to it as what would Jesus do? And I think that's kind of dumbing it down a little bit too much.
I agree. It is.
It's almost making fun of it. But there's still a good element in the world, and realize that you're going to be under attack by the evil elements in the world. Front row. Time to go. You have been listening to the Doc Owen Show. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. Now go out there this week and take care. Pay attention, and God bless.
Bye-bye, folks. God bless.